Hello everyone, good evening. For a third week running, Delhi's air is severely bad. It will remain so for the next 48 hours because of wind conditions. If there are no winds, the pollution stays where it is. Now, this is a dystopian nightmare that is sucking away life out of the capital's citizens. We cough, we get sick, we sneeze, we outrage, and then we move on. So do our politicians. This year, as for the last 6 years, there has been much fire and fury about the capital's toxic air. This year again, there have been band-aid measures, and this year again, they have not worked. The fight against pollution cannot be about optics, but that is exactly how it is turning out to be in the national capital. Now the Delhi Pollution Board too is calling out the Delhi government over these optics. I want to talk to you about 3 such measures that are currently at play and simply don't work beyond a limited point. Let's start with the smog towers. Remember these? Remember this? If you've been to Connaught Place, you'll probably spot it. This was inaugurated amidst much fanfare at a cost of 21 crore rupees by Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal way back in 2021. It had reopened last week, having been shut for 8 months. It took the Supreme Court to order to get it to function again. Imagine the Supreme Court had to intervene to get these smog towers functioning again. Question is, why did the Supreme Court bother at all? If they had asked experts, these experts would have told them that smog towers are completely ineffective in fighting pollution. And I'm not saying this, by the way. A study by IIT Kanpur and the Delhi Pollution Control Board are. In fact, Delhi's Pollution Control Board is saying that the 2 smog towers in Delhi should be turned into museums. Now, this was one of the many stinging observations which the panel submitted as part of its report to the NGT on November 10th. The DPCC says Delhi will require 47,000 such smog towers to effectively clean up the capital's air. How much does the capital have right now? Exactly 2. 2 versus 47,000. And these 47,000, just by the way, if bought, will come at a cost of 11,80,725 crore rupees. Should I repeat that figure for you? 11,80,725 crore rupees. And add to that 15 lakh monthly to maintain the tower. So essentially, the DPCC effectively has told the Delhi government, deploy 47,000 towers or accept without any shame that your idea simply does not work. By the way, this is exactly in line with what IIT Bombay has said. Its study found that the tower at Connaught Place in Delhi reduces pollution levels by only 16 to 17% in a radius of 100 to 400 meters. 16 to 17% in a radius of 100 to 400 meters. So dear viewers, don't let anyone fog you into believing that these smog towers are actually a solution for fighting pollution in Delhi NCR. Now, let's get to the second measure, the odd and even scheme, which has been called mere optics by none other than the Supreme Court. Now, the Aam Aadmi Party government has put up a very brave defense of its flagship scheme in the top court. They are saying that odd and even actually reduces air pollution by 13% in the city when it is implemented. But what Mr. Kejriwal and his party didn't tell the Supreme Court is what multiple studies on odd and even over the last few years have actually revealed. Let's talk about an IIT Kanpur study which was held in 2016. It showed that odd and even led to only a 2 to 3% dip in PM 2.5 levels in the capital. Then there was a similar study done by the Delhi Technological University. Again, this was done on the 2016 implementation. And that showed that there was, yes, a reduction in pollution, but that reduction was just between 4 to 6%. Now, many of you can argue that it may be a drop in the ocean, but even if it helps 1%, it's worth doing it given how bad Delhi's air is. But fact is, band-aid measures don't work beyond a point. Let's get to the third optic we are talking about. Artificial rain. Again, it's nothing more than headline management. Let's put the right pictures on our screens. This is actually the Yamuna phoning, and this is nothing to do with the artificial rain. So let's quickly put out those pictures as well. Artificial rain, something that the Aam Aadmi Party government says it is in the process of deciding. They are saying that we will induce artificial rain if the air quality goes into the very severe category. If it happens, it will be done around 20th of this month at a cost of 3 crore rupees. Now, this method has been tried and tested in China during the 2008 Olympics and the CCP's centenary celebrations. And it has worked on the two said occasions. But there is a fear which comes with it, something which experts have flagged off as well here in India. In order to ensure artificial rain is actually successful, natural conditions must be conducive to rain. Basically, you need a cloud cover to generate moisture, which would then induce these rains. Another big concern is that artificial rain is not seen as a long-term solution. In fact, it does bring down pollution levels, but it brings down pollution levels just for 48 to 72 hours. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Artificial rain is a desperate measure, but it will only work for 48 to 72 hours. Again, what does this mean? It means it's just a band-aid to treat a fracture. Now, these are the three optics which we have spoken to you about. The Aam Aadmi Party is good at optics, the Aam Aadmi Party is good at headline management, but so is the BJP, which is in power at the center and has simply said that there is nothing we can do about air pollution in the Delhi NCR region because this is the mandate of the AAP government in Delhi. While they say that, look at the optics that are coming to us from the BJP side. Today, the focus shifted from air pollution to water pollution. The BJP did this because Chhath Puja is coming. BJP MP Manoj Tiwari took a tour of the Yamuna river, as he does, by the way, every year, and then he showed everyone the white foam in the waters and slapped the Arvind Kejriwal government over how the river has turned toxic under the AAM government. Listen in.
वजीराबाद बैराज के बाद की यमुना जी जो कालिंदी कुंज से तक टच होती हैं, जिनके झाग को देख करके जो भयावह स्थिति है, भगवान न करे वैसी किसी नदी को ऐसा रूप देखना पड़े। अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, छठ को बैन करना निदान नहीं है, नदी का स्वच्छता निदान है। लेकिन उसी नदी का एक पार्ट एकदम स्वच्छ है, हम लोग उसमें नहा रहे हैं, पानी पी रहे हैं, उसको क्यों बैन कर रहे हैं? ये मेरी प्रार्थना है कि कृपया वजीराबाद बैराज के ऊपर की नदी को आप छठ के लिए, बड़े बड़े उत्सवों के लिए खोलिए ताकि यमुना जी पीपल फ्रेंडली हो।
So our politicians are experts at optics and headline management, but when it actually comes to looking for solutions or actually implementing long-term solutions, no one says anything. Who wants to work that hard? Manindra Agarwal is professor at the Computer Science and Engineering Department at IIT Kanpur. He's joining us on the broadcast. We have Sanjay Upadhyay, who's an advocate at the Supreme Court. He's joining us on the broadcast as well. Sanjay Upadhyay is someone who has extensively argued in the Supreme Court over Delhi's pollution and NCR's pollution. Professor Agarwal, can I just quickly come to you? We've had this chat last week as well about artificial rain. The Delhi government now is fairly serious about introducing/inducing artificial rain in the capital on the 20th or the 21st. They are waiting for the air quality to get into the very severe level. I want to ask you just how effective artificial rain will be in curbing Delhi's pollution and whether at all it is a long-term measure.
Thank you. I was just listening to your opening statements, and I fully agree with the things that you said, that artificial rain is not a long-term measure. It's a, as you put it, desperate times require desperate measures. So it is when the situation is very bad, there isn't a way out. then at least one can attempt to do artificial rains to bring down the pollution level. And it would, of course, happens only for a few days, agree. If we can get a decent rain, we can go up to stretch it to a week or so. And then it will have to be repeated. So it's a short-term measure. It's a measure which is to be used only when there isn't many other options left. But it is something that is available. And coming to the specific dates that's a little optimistic because we need good cloud cover. And we cannot predict that, okay, on that date we will get good cloud cover. We have to continuously monitor the IMD and other radars to understand when there can be cloud cover. And these things are not very precisely predictable as well. So it is something that is, we can kind of say that it appears, I mean, if I talk about the data of today, perhaps around 24th, 25th, there may be such clouds available. That is the only thing that I can say as of today. Plus, it requires a whole bunch of permissions to fly an aircraft in Delhi. So, modulo all of that, this is possible. But again, I'll repeat, this is going to be a short-term measure. When there isn't any other option available, it may be used.
Okay. Also, the fact is, it is coming 3 weeks. If it comes, it will come 4 weeks into Delhi's air quality remaining in the severe or the very severe category. So you could ask, ek mahina to ho gaya, what's the point of getting in or inducing these artificial rains when things are actually going to look better because parali burning will stop. But Professor Agarwal, can I quickly then ask you, my research and my reading into the subject of artificial rains seem to have suggested that the impact of these artificial rains on the pollution levels of a city is anywhere between 48 to 72 hours. But you are saying it could be longer given the intensity of the rain. Could you explain that to our viewers, please?
Yeah, so it really is a function of how much rain takes place. So that how much does it washes away these suspended particles that exist in the air. The more it washes them away, the lower the pollution level gets, and therefore coming back to original point, it will take longer time. So that's
okay. And you've spoken about a bunch of permissions.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You've spoken about a bunch of permissions. You say flying a aircraft in Delhi's skies is one permission that is required from the center. What are the other permissions that will be required if artificial rain is actually to be induced in the capital?
Yeah, so the same permission, but multiple agencies are involved in this. DGCA, Airport Authority of India, also Ministry of Home Affairs, because Delhi has a lot of very important people living. So flying a aircraft all over Delhi requires clearances from Ministry of Home Affairs as well. So these are the permissions that are quite essential before we attempt any such thing.
Okay, Sanjay Upadhyay, as someone who's closely seen Delhi's response/non-response to pollution levels in our city over the last 6 to 7 years, do you have a perspective on why politicians think that long-term measures are simply not worth it? Improving public infrastructure and public transport to curb pollution levels in Delhi is simply not worth it. It's not worth it to do away with coal and diesel and shift gears to cleaner fuels. Why do governments, successive governments, think that long-term measures, permanent solutions are not worth it, because of which we get band-aid solutions every year?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to make. The reason why we've been sort of playing around with this very serious issue, and we get absolutely desperate, as Professor said, in desperate measures, I think we are missing the larger point of only administrative band-aid solutions, as you call it. For example, the National Clean Air Program, which has been going on for so many years, which hasn't borne the right results. And one of the things, and it's not because I'm a lawyer I'm saying this, is you have to first revisit the law itself. Unless you revisit the law, you actually have concepts like We are so used to bad air that we don't have a long-term mandatory solutions. And unless we work on those solutions, we are still going to keep talking about these desperate measures. I mean, whether it's artificial rain or smog towers or odd and even, we are going to keep talking about these quick fix measures in desperate times. But that's not going to help us at all. And we really have to take serious, steps. Supreme Court on the 10th of November very categorically said, please use technology for God's sake. There are technologies available from farm fires, from detecting fires. Use that, to the benefit of the people, and have a institutional underpinning to react to those situations. Not just react in the end when everything has gone to severe plus and severe, air quality. So that's where the solution is. We have to think long term, and for God's sake, it's our lives. We have to think long term.
Sanjay, what the fact also is, and China is not my favorite country, and that's the last place from where I would want to quote an example. But the fact is that Beijing's air was worse than Delhi's air some 15, 20 years ago. Today, it's 50% better than Delhi's air. In fact, Beijing has managed to improve in the last 8 to 9 years, improve their air quality by 50%. So we have an example there, and the example from Beijing is telling us that yes, while you implement all these measures inside a city, like doing away with old cars, like doing away with diesel vehicles, like doing away with heating that requires coal, etc., your real success, Beijing's real success lay when it started working outside the city limits in what we call airshed management here in India. That when you try and clean up or at least identify polluters that are surrounding your city and clean them up, your city's air will become better. That is something that is not happening in India, is it? Given the fact that Haryana will not speak to Delhi, Rajasthan will not speak to Delhi and Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh will simply march to its own drumbeat. And the center will say, hum kya kare? Humse to kuch nahi ho raha.
No, absolutely. I mean, institutionally, we are absolutely not coordinated. And most countries which have succeeded have had a very strong mandate of implementation of the framework that they have. We have not even visited our Air Act since 1981 properly. I mean, as I said, even my earlier submissions that, there are rule-making power of the state governments. Why don't we make these frameworks strong and get implemented? NGT, in the past 7 or 8 years, has had very specific 25 to 26 measures. And it's just about taking those measures, and that's been done for a lot of consultations with different state governments, because courts, when they come heavily, governments come and meet, chief secretaries start meeting. It's very sad, but that's the truth. The chief secretaries start meeting together only at the order of the Supreme Court or the NGT, which is so unfortunate. But the fact is that these courts have given us a slew of measures. Administratively, you have to take those slew of measures and get it on the ground. What stops them is absolutely beyond belief.
It's political apathy, I would say. We leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. It's interesting to note how many agencies, multiple agencies that actually look after Delhi's air. You have the DPCC, that's the Delhi Pollution Control Board. You have the CPCB, that's the Central Pollution Control Board. You have the NGT. You have a Delhi government who has an environment minister and an environment department. And of course, you have the central government and you have the environment minister of this country who lives in this city. And then there is the Supreme Court that keeps getting irritated with all of them and passing a slew of orders which never get accepted / implemented. So you have 6 high-profile agencies, bodies and courts that are actually looking at Delhi's air. I beg your pardon, Mr. Upadhyay, you were saying something.
The Commission on Air Quality Management
was absolutely
created for handling NCR and adjoining areas. That's the 7th.
So that's a 7th. So you have 7 agencies and courts and authorities and panels that are actually looking after Delhi's air. And Delhi's air is showing absolutely no improvement in the last 6 to 7 years. There have been some gains that have been made. Let's not take away from that fact. But the air continues to be such that we are smoking 30 cigarettes a day without actually being smokers. Sanjay Upadhyay, we'll leave it there for the moment. Thank you very much. Maninder Agarwal, thank you very much for joining us as well on the broadcast. We are